Instilled Regard was fourth.
Time for Capital OTB's annual Kentucky Derby Seminar with your hosts, Seth Merrow, and special guest, Anthony Mormino and Kevin Cox.
Good evening and welcome to the annual Capital OTB Kentucky Derby Seminar. I'm Seth Merrow, joined by Kevin Cox and Anthony Mormino. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Ready to talk? Little Oaks, little Derby.
The great American event.
And we'll try to give you some ideas, both the big event coming up on Friday, the big event coming up on Saturday as well. And there are lots of wagering opportunities. Give you the minimums, win, place, and show, $2. Exact, it's a $2 minimum, but it's a $1 minimum for boxes or wheels. Daily double and super high $5 minimum. Trifecta, pick 3, pick 4, pick 5, 50 cents. Superfecta is a dime. The Derby City 6, 20 cents. The 2-day pick 6 is $1. So there are plenty of the 2-day wagers, and obviously on the days themselves. I think if I read correctly,
When did they switch the superfecta back to
I don't think
dime?
that's correct.
The superfecta has always been $1, right?
And no one ever asked them. If you read their put out, they say for the whole meet, 10 cents at the bottom, it says not Derby Day or Oaks Day.
You are correct. I didn't read parenthetically,
Yes.
dollar, Oaks, and Derby.
And no one in the media
for lines at the track. I mean, it's people spewing out dime numbers.
Which I don't understand because
it
it's
makes
almost
sense though.
part wheel. It's like it doesn't take any time. It's like 1 by 6.
They want to see $152,000 superfecta payout, probably.
I think that's greater. They don't want the bases covered. I don't think that in today's day and age, I don't think there's a technical issue anymore. People betting. I told you I went to Keeneland a couple of weeks ago. It's like people just betting, like just. But they
An actual person. You had
the place was packed. You didn't hear. I know we're not going to talk about it. It was the greatest sporting event of my life, all things considered. But they've always did this, and no one asked them, like in the media, go, why can't we have dime superfectas on the 2 biggest days of the year?
Well, they've said they don't want the lines. They don't want people standing there in line listing off a bunch of, particularly when you have people who are at the track for the first time and you have 100,000 people.
Well, why not just make it 10 cents online and $1 at the track?
That I could see.
I can't figure out a reason why not.
That certainly is.
I haven't been to the Derby since '89. Do people bet at a teller anymore?
Oh, I think on a day like that, yeah.
Sure, because a lot of them are tourists.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't have accounts.
All right.
All right, let's jump in, and we're going to kind of separate things out here, do a little Friday action briefly, looking at the Oaks, and then we'll take a break, and we'll come back, and we'll dive into the Derby itself. But before we do that, our man here, the Brooklyn Cowboy, Kevin Cox, over the weekend is going to have a bankroll. The bankroll team of 50 was selected on Wednesday. Hopefully everybody has been alerted. If you're on the team, good luck. But the chance is there with $2,500 to play with to knock it out of the park. And I know last year it was out of the park. So what are you looking forward to this year? And
off the top of my head, as I have it written down here, last year we started out with $2,500 and we got lucky. Oh, not lucky. There's some skill involved with no balls. And then we had an all pick 3. And after hitting that for several $1,000s, we ended up getting back $9,271.60 on the day. And over the last few years, we're up about $8,000 for the bankroll bettors here. So we've done quite well. I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. So again, we wish you good luck, and obviously, by design, also the folks on the bankroll team over the couple of days. All right, let's jump in. Let's get some thoughts. The highlight on Friday will be the 3-year-old fillies in the Kentucky Oaks Grade 1 event. $1.5 million up for grabs. Mile and an eighth. Anthony, how did you see the Oaks?
About the Oaks, I think I went to the Oaks before it started becoming the Oaks. It would be just like 60,000 people at the track. I tell people I only went to the Derby once. It snowed. Went to the Oaks. It wasn't really a big thing. The Oaks was just like the locals in town. They just went to the track. Now it's what are they going to get, 125,000?
Well, now even the Thursday has a special name to it, right?
So does Wednesday. You just can't get enough of it. Unbelievable. And I said to Seth on Saturday's program, I think they get fined if the people that work for that don't say Kentucky Derby 150, like whatever. I think it's a 2-horse race to me, and I think it's like I'll be a part wheel trifecta person, and the Derby and the Oaks are usually some of the only times I put 2 horses on top and then play part wheels. But it's rare that I even care what a trainer says about their horses, but I do believe Ken McPeak, that he has, what do you say, Grizzly, or they better bring bears. I have a Grizzly, and I like the 5, Torpedo Anna. Second start of the year after an impressive fantasy. Another horse that I found myself surprised to liking her, because Seth really opened my eyes to like buyers, speed figures, and everything. And just FYI, has to be the worst speed figures ever to be a champion. I said that about Hoosier Philly when everybody talked about how good she was, and she was running 70s. And just FYI, I thought was one of the worst champions, deservedly. She was supposed to be the champ, but my goodness. But I have to tell you, I think she's a completely different 3-year-old. So I'm keying the 5 and the 13. I'll use the 8 also. But I noticed, we were talking just before getting on air, the main body has 14. 6 of them are 30-1. I contacted my good friend and colleague who makes morning lines, and he says it is a very good, he played by the rules, which surprised me because, so to me, I think this is clearly the haves and the have-nots. I think 6 of them have no chance against the big 3 here. And I'm a guy who likes, we'll get later. I would usually want to like one of these 30-1 shots, but I don't.
Kevin.
Well, being he just gave me no shot at all to win this race, I might as well just pass it over to you, right?
Well, who do you like?
Well, it doesn't matter now, right?
Well, I like to tell people, not only no public handicapper has picked more horses run last than me. So, I mean, there's, I guess I'm intrigued. Do you like one of the? Well, I would like one of the 30-1 shots.
Well, one thing I like to do in a race with several horses that are lightly raced is I like to see a horse that's done things twice, has gone 2 turns twice, or is clear off the layoff line by 2 starts. If I don't see that, then I start looking for a price. So I'm going to back up with my 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. I felt you had to include Leslie's Vose here off the last win in Keeneland and the Ashland. The horse has obviously been well meant all along, having gone for nearly 1.2 million at Keeneland. So I have no knocks, obviously, other than the draw. Power Squeeze is a very interesting animal. This one's going 3 for 3 when going 2 turns, and showed versatility in doing it at 3 different tracks. I like to see that when a horse doesn't need to, as the old timers say, take their track with them. And you're getting 12-1 on a horse owning the 3rd best last race speed figure. So if a couple of the horses ahead of them don't, happen not to perform, 12-1 is a pretty darn good price. And I like when you have these B-level racetrack riders in big races, because they're going to be going all out for the minor spoils. Speaking on that note,
you're going to love my take in the Derby then. Oh my God.
Speaking of that note, my top pick is a 30-1 shot. In fact, tap it generally. Yes, on first glance, you see the buyers are just in the high 70s. But I like when horses are just missing, how can you say, the next decade of buyers by a point and 2. For example, not in the 80s by just 2 points, but will probably be more overlooked because of that. Mm-hmm. The adjusted numbers are much better than that because this one's been running from the 8-hole and the 8-hole last 2 times out. So I adjusted this one's last 3 2-turn races on a fast track, and she's gone from a 75 to an 82 to an 84.7. So when I see that, I always say, who knows where her ceiling truly is? Esquivel is obviously going to try really hard. I like the cozy draw, and I'm willing to take a price. Just listen, hoping that a couple of the others stub their toes. We'll need a perfect trip, however, but for risk-cost analysis, I think it's worth a shot at 30-1.
Very good. I have a 5, 8, 13, and 14. Ways and Means just missed my mix, the Chad Brown Klarovich runner, and she could, spoil, upset my apple cart. But Chad Brown wasn't thrilled, and that was a pretty quick workout just a few days back. Again, maybe too quick, but I wouldn't necessarily argue anybody off Ways and Means. I think she's talented and has a nice future ahead. But I did go with Torpedo Ann, and I've told this story now going back the past month or so. I had Kenny McPeak on the last week in the Fairgrounds. I had him on the Saturday morning show, and we were talking about some entrants he had in that day at Fairgrounds, and he also had some horses that day at Turfway. So we talked about those horses, and then wrapped up the segment, went to the commercial, and I'm still talking. And, thanks for coming on. And Kenny said, you didn't talk about my filly next week in a fantasy. I really like her. So I tried to make that point as the week progressed. Just he's high on this one. And she lived up to it. Thurpita Anna with a lifetime best buyer in the seasonal debut in that fantasy. I'm going to land there. Tarifa, though, I think looked very good in the Fairgrounds Oaks. She put in a nice number on a series of improving numbers. I think she's dangerous as well. In the third spot, just FYI, as Anthony said, the numbers last year for a champion were a little bit light. And her seasonal debut, second place finish with a solid and improved number, seemed to indicate she has now come back as an improved 3-year-old. She'll have to kind of, prove that for certain on Friday. And also, she's a little bit behind the 8 ball because they were looking to get the season started a little earlier, and she had a couple of dings to kind of overcome, or a couple of little situations where nothing major, but just delayed her a little bit until that try in the Ashland. So that's a little bit of a concern too, but certainly she's plenty talented. Leslie's Rose, I agree, is a very good looking runner from Todd with IRAD on board. And so in my mix as well. So again, for me, 5, 8, 13, and 14.
Let me ask you both one quick question, because you both landed on Torpedo Anna, both of these did.
Right.
And just for FYI, how do you feel about horses returning off a long layoff like this and then posting a career best effort? I like to fade them a little bit.
I hate it. I developed the term less well because of this. It's my favorite route against. The only thing that I thought was that, unlike like babies, when they run big, then they come back and they run less well. It had March 30th. So, I don't know how long a 3-year-old filly needs to not have muscle regression, but it's definitely not what I like at all. And both of my horses that I like very much are in a bad spot for me. Like, that's my one fear. Now, the other question I have, I talked to Seth about, because if they regress to 88, 87, they might still be there. No one's running 100 to win the Kentucky Oaks. This is a group who are what they are on paper. 91, 92 might win it, but.
See, I'm hoping they regress maybe about 7-8%, and my horse moves up about 7-8%, and it makes it competitive, because I've seen them bounce a little bit.
Right.
Will they bounce only 2 points? I don't know.
The one that I am going to play, just so fair, I am going to play Regulatory Risk for a couple of reasons. That's going to be the filly at a price, and I'm less concerned about what we used to say in the 80s, a bounce. And I would like to get a head-to-head bet with the 2 Chad Brown runners, Ways and Means and
Do they have them this year, the head-to-head bets?
No. But the other thing was Seth said about the workout, see, when Seth was growing up in that, we wouldn't even bat an eye at 46-1. We'd be like, that's how you are supposed to work before a big race. But obviously.
Well, and it was also a lot that the trainer clearly was not happy with it as well. And
I'd like to talk to him, why did you not want her that sharp? It wasn't the week of, it was the week before. I was like, I don't get how, if it was 2 days before or something that, you want him to stretch her legs and he blows her out, I'd be upset too. But when I first heard it, I was like, we're not even into the week of the Oaks yet.
Nobody does that anymore. That's why. They get panicky.
But what?
I agree with you. But
I'm like, if she runs a hole in the wind, he's going to have to apologize and go dig up the body of the kid.
Before we move on from Friday, we were talking before, and Kevin, you said you had maybe an idea in the Ali Sheba. Nice little race for the older horses, $750,000, mile and a 16. First Mission coming off a nice win in the Essex down at Oaklawn. Tappet Trice is in here. Trademark with a good record at the Fairgrounds. I think Vicky Oliver's always kind of clever to take a look at. But what did you see in the Ali Sheba? Race number 7 on Friday.
I had some time to kill while I was sitting out there, so I looked at this race a couple of times. And 2 horses intrigued me. The first one, my second choice in the race, is number 6, Tumba Rumba. This one's a nose shy of being 4 for 4 with sires on a fast track, and just 2 for 10 otherwise. So obviously they have a nice rapport, and you're getting 8-1 on them. But I kept looking at this number 4, Call Me Fast, for a myriad of reasons. Myriad, never figured that out. I like to be forgiving of pre and post layoff running lines, because maybe something went wrong in the start before the break, and maybe they weren't fully cranked for the return. And if you look, The return was in the Commonwealth going 7 furlongs. This horse doesn't win 7 furlongs. So it was likely a prep race. 98.5 and 101.3 adjusted and 2 placings at the grade 3 level. Just count that Cornhusker because ran with Butte for the first time, which you don't see on the you don't see that much anymore.
No.
And
Capital B.
not to be crude, but going from Leparoux to Pratt is like getting Lasix for the first time. So you're getting Pratt at 20-1 off a monster jockey change and a second off the layoff try. And the last time he was in a second off the layoff try, he won $12 to win. So I'm going to take a shot on Call Me Fast in that race at 20-1.
I like it. All right. That wraps up. I'll look at some Friday action. The Kentucky Oaks. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we will shift our attention and look at the race we've been waiting for 4 months now, the Kentucky Derby, and go horse by horse and give you some ideas and selections. All of that right after this. Stay tuned.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Paul Brown. These two arch rivals hang ahead with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish to the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Welcome to the annual Capital OTB Kentucky Derby Seminar, Kentucky Derby number 150, year 2024. I'm Seth Merrow, joined by Kevin Cox and Anthony Mormino. And fellas, let's get maybe some general thoughts out. I will start. I think Fierceness to me is the best of the crop. And if he shows up with his best effort, he's going to be tough to beat on Saturday. But you get by him, and I can make a case for a bunch of them. It was just a season where nobody could really string two together. Sierra Leone did it, or Sierra Leone. I'm never sure. I've heard it pronounced both ways. And Forever Young has put a string together. But other than that, you get a big effort, and then the horse would not validate in the next spot. They're lightly raced, many of them. And so I think it's a very intriguing edition of the Derby. General thoughts, Kevin?
Well, I think there's money to be made if you can find your way past the 2 big favorites. Now, obviously, you know, the load with Sierra Leone is going to matter a great deal. Are they going to give him preferential treatment and load the horse last? If they don't announce it in advance, I think the horse should go in when he's supposed to.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody else has paid their dues. They all had to go through the random pill draw, et cetera, et cetera. I don't feel he should get preferential treatment. So how is he going to act up? And now that Fierceness is out of the dreaded 17 hole because it was over 149, apparently, you know, according to Twitter. This Twitter gets out there. But how many of those horses were 5-2 or less? Yeah. It doesn't matter. I think Todd was actually probably doing cartwheels that he drew the outside.
For the people that posted the horses that had the dreaded 17, I had 3 of them. I looked at it, I go, 3 of these horses were my top pick.
And I bet they weren't 5-2, though.
They were not.
They were not. So I think Todd's probably happy about the draw because the horse can make his own trip. Yeah. You know, he's got the
I think
speed.
the person that's the happiest, right, is Encino went out, so T.O. Password gets to load last. I always think that's the best thing.
Or would he get to load last? Or
no, Forever Young gets to load last now. I think that's tremendous.
Yeah, whereas he was going to be one of the first 2.
And be like waiting. So now he just spring the latch.
Anything else?
Nah, I think that's.
I think
All
they're.
right,
I think
Anthony,
they're
general
far.
thoughts?
You have a 20 horse field, a 14 horse field, the Oaks. I think there's many tosses in the Oaks. I think there's very few tosses in the Derby, which I like. I mean, I am the banner carrier for chaos. I think we'll get to it. I really would not, and I'm a vertical player, so third and fourth place to me counts, folks. And I have, it's not too many to throw outs, the anchor, which I like.
All right, let's take a look at it. We'll go in little groups of three, the first three, second three, et cetera, et cetera. We'll each make some comments on each of the horses in the field, and then at the end, we'll toss out our selection. So let's start out. First, we've alluded to it already, but if you didn't hear, Encino is out. That pulls in number 21, Epic Ride, off the also eligible list. So
Hopefully that's the only one this year, please.
Yeah,
please.
I totally agree.
All T-shirt makers agree.
All right. Number 1, Dornoch. Number 2, Sierra Leone. Number 3, Mystic Dan. Anthony, your thoughts on the first three?
A couple of things, like Dornoch, 5 years ago, this would have been a problem with the old starting gate. This new one is better, but it's still tough when you have inside speed. I guess the only good thing is, to me, athletes, you talk to them, you want them to have, don't think, fewer choices. You just have to go. What I do like is this is his third start. We talk about, I love the comeback race. That's solid. You get the slight muscle regression and you move forward. If he'd have drawn like the 7 post or something, I think he would have been heck to pay. He's a major player in how the race unfolds. And as we go through this, the two things you should know is I'm expecting a strong Kentucky Derby pace, not just a strong pace. I'm expecting a strong pace, and Dornoch, I think, gets all the worst of it. Sierra Leone, I think, gets some of all the best of it, in that I think you can just relax, trust. Now, for him, he's not on the outside. He's not going anywhere early, so number 2 doesn't matter. He gets to save ground. And Mystic Dan, to me, this is what I've said all the time with everyday racing. I put speed figures and wins that are on a off track. I compartmentalize them, and I sort of pay no attention to them. Although I think, is it going to be rain? I don't pay much attention.
It doesn't matter.
To
They'll call it fast no matter how much it rains.
Just look at Always Streaming. I say it all the time. They are not interested in helping you. But Mystic Dan, the race that sticks out is in the Southwest. Well, I'm not a believer in figs that are made on an off going. So without that figure, he's like about 13 other horses in this race. But I think for the big concept of the race, 2 of the 3 most important horses are in the first trilogy for us, for different reasons, though.
Kevin?
You mentioned Dornoch, and I guess you're assuming he's going to send. Was that last race intended to be rating a little bit, or was that just an accident? Because the horse has won while rating in the past, so I didn't know what to glean out of that, whether or not that was part of the game plan. Because if you see the horse was keen early on, I would assume if it was part of the game plan in the Bluegrass, they're not going to try it again.
But aren't his 3 wins all making every call?
Yes, absolutely. But it did run well when trying. I just don't know if that was done by design last time.
If it was, you're not doing it again.
You're not doing it again. So the horse is obviously going to have to be sending. The one thing is, if ends up getting tired, then Sierra Leone won't be able to follow that path. If he's going to be
right, he'll be in the way.
He'll be in the way. And speaking of Sierra Leone, like we mentioned, how is he going to be loading? We all know his issues. Chad has said, well, we worked it out over the last week or so. Really? In front of 120,000 people? It's not the same working it out in the morning or a quiet afternoon than on the day off. Needs the trip. Can't make his trip. Needs things to open up. That's the one thing from the tool hall. No one's denying his talent. Just a nose shy of being 4 for 4. I like when trainers make aggressive medication or equipment changes despite a horse's success. And this shows you the greatness of Chad is that he said, no, we're going to put blinkers on this horse. And the horse got even better. Off of, in essence, a win and a nose to feed. So it all depends on the trip. You can't leave the horse out of the mix, obviously. As for Mystic Dan, I have written down here a bit of an in and outer, encountered some trouble last time out, second off the layoff, but unless you're friends with somebody named Dan, I'm inclined to leave this one out.
Dornoch, we haven't mentioned yet, sibling to last year's winner, Mage, full sibling, in fact. And from what I understand, Danny Gargan, that was kind of an experiment last time. Let's see if we can get him to sit. Clearly a failed experiment. The Fountain of Youth, we were down broadcasting live that weekend. And if folks don't remember, there were some scratches, and it was not a strong edition as it played out. But he won. He was supposed to win, and he won. We talked earlier about coming up with a big win in the seasonal debut, and then maybe you go backwards in the next start. Well, maybe this is one of those situations, and he moves forward. I wouldn't be shocked to see him win. I'm not using him. Again, the Fountain of Youth was he did what he had to do, so I'm not really going to give him much of a knock for that, although, as I say, it was a little bit of a weak field. And the Bluegrass, they experimented, so it wouldn't be a shock, but as you both alluded to, post position isn't any bonus necessarily either, although with his speed, maybe he'll be able to get out of there all right. Sierra Leone, I have him in my mix, down towards the bottom of my mix, clearly very talented. He is going to play out the year as a 3-year-old to pay attention to, from super potent connections with very potent breeding, and we can root for him because he was bought right up the Northway at Facig-Tipton in August of 2022. We see him here with this big come-from-behind victory in the Bluegrass, and off of that, he has to be considered. But again, it is a come-from-behind victory in a 20-horse field that provides obstacles all their own. Mystic Dan, I don't have the horse in my mix, but I'm going to play around with it in some fashion, a little across-the-board money or whatever, because I think we'll get a price. But boy, that Southwest was a very big victory. Maybe it was aided by the wet track. We'll find out as the year progresses, perhaps. But he did have trouble in the Arkansas Derby. That maybe provides an excuse on the follow-up. Again, I couldn't quite pull the trigger to put him in my mix, but I think he is very interesting, and I think they'll offer a price. So I probably will just have a little something backing up on him. All right, next 4. It's number 4, Catching Freedom. Number 5, Catalytic. Number 6, Just Steel. Kevin, your thoughts?
One quick question before we get into that. If Sierra Leone was in the Fiercenesses hole and the bulls were reversed, do you think the odds would be different as well? You think this horse would be better if it was breaking from the outside?
With this come-from-behind style, I agree that I know the 2 is a big obstacle because he's going to be in the back anyway.
Okay.
So I don't know whether I would change up. Would you?
Maybe a half a point or a point, I would think.
Okay.
Catching Freedom, I have a couple of things circled here and a big arrow going up the center of the sheet. If you look at the buyers, improve with each and every start, which is always a plus. And I like when a horse does that while increasing in class levels along the way, right up until the recent grade 2s. And I've seen this before with a lot of horses that have been in the Derby, increasing in distance, leading up to today's 1.25 miles. Hard to knock would obviously be aided by any kind of pace meltdown. The Louisiana Derby win was definitely visually impressive, and Pratt happens to be my favorite rider in the country, so I'm never going to say a bad word about him, except for the match race he rode in at Saratoga this last year. He tried to raid a horse. That had
Didn't get the memo.
That had me climbing the walls. Catalytic, listen, second in the Florida Derby, but aside from the winner, that was probably one of the worst groupings I've seen in the Florida Derby in recent years. Somebody had to be second that day, and it was this one. The Tomlinson for today's distance is very low. I mean, a lot of horses here have numbers in the 270s. This one's in the 255. I'm just not seeing it. And as I do the old flip of the page here, Just Steel, the 6, intrigues me a little bit. I have written down here a sleeper for the exotics. This one's outran his odds while hitting the board in 4 of his last 5, by a good deal, too, in terms of placings. Most experience in the field with 11 starts. You never used to say that before. You would have horses with, 15, 16 starts
100%.
coming into the Derby. I never thought I'd say in the 20-horse field, 11 races is the most.
You're the vet.
But that shows a horse is a little bit battle-tested, which can mean a lot, especially when you have a hungry rider who's making a name for himself in Keith, and could be a nice exotics underplayer, especially having won his only start right here on a fast track.
Catching Freedom to me is interesting, coming out of Louisiana, which I think was producing nice runners this season on the prep trail. That Risen Star, I think, is pretty much a consensus is the best prep race this season. Then he follows up with the Louisiana Derby win. But he also comes from the back of the crowd. We're watching the stretch run here of this Louisiana Derby. He is going to win. Running second is going to be Honor Marie. So you can pay attention to the second place finisher as well. But again, I had Sierra Leone down at the bottom of my mix with the closing style, and I have Catching Freedom down a little bit in my mix as well. Going to have to negotiate a trip, but this is a very, very talented horse. Catalytic, folks remember Florida Derby. I took a little shot with this one as the top pick, Florida Derby day. And so at 29-1, I was happy with the second place finish. Now, because I had played him a little bit under Fierceness as well, and so the exacta was okay. But boy, it was a well-beaten second, and the horses, only had 3 starts so far. And if you heard Safi Joseph interviewed this week by Jenny Reese, I played it on the Saturday morning show. He was, essentially it was, we got the points, we're taking our shot. I can't blame them, but I can't quite pull the trigger on Catalytic. Again, I liked him in the Florida Derby, but off of that second place finish, but well-beaten second, can't use him. And then Just Steel. This one's interesting. D. Wayne Lucas, and I just pulled up some of the stats. If you go to Equibase, they have a nice stats page with all kinds of interesting stats on the Derby, and one of them showing Wayne Lucas, 4 Derby wins with 48 starters. So to have the coach go into the winner's circle again would be very interesting, particularly with Keith Asmussen stepping into his first Derby. It's just an interesting story and a talented horse coming out of an Arkansas Derby where I think he ran very, very well. So I'm not using him, but I don't have any big knocks on Just Steel. Anthony, your thoughts on 4 through 6?
Very rare. When the main body was originally constructed, there was 6 runners that have never taken a backward buyer step. Very rare. Encino was one of them, so now we have 5. Catching Freedom is one of those. Catching Freedom is a major player in here. I've talked about for years that, like Ways and Means, when she broke her maiden, she got a 90. And I contend that I want my horse breaking the maiden that runs about a 70. And that's what Catching Freedom is. Like with Ways and Means, she ever going to run better than that debut? Well, we already know Catching Freedom can. I agree with you, the Flavian Prada, an outstanding jockey. I think it's the part we showed and the comment in the form doesn't help you the best. That Catching Freedom had a very attractive trip, was inside. Now, you see him in the 8 path, and you're thinking he didn't run overland. He was inside. Pratt was a genius. By about the middle of the curb, he was outside Honor Marie, and obviously it's not going to get him stopped, and was just a brilliant ride. Catalytic is 30-1. There is a 50-1 shot in this race that I would love to have a head-to-head against. Just Steel, the only time I've ever been to the Derby, I was the guest of Wayne Lucas, so obviously I have a bias, and the coach, he has, to me, one of the second-tier runners in here. The problem for me is the first tier is about 6 horses. So I think he, as a trifecta player myself, he's a 3rd place at best player for me.
Next 3, Honor Marie, number 7, number 8, Just a Touch, and number 10, T.O. Password. Again, number 9, Encino is scratched. I'll kick things off here. Honor Marie, put this one in my mix. Wonder if the 20-1 on the morning line may wind up being generous, because there was a nice workout the other day and everybody commented on it. The workout watchers, and was kind of giving this one thumbs up. Comes out of that nice series of races down at the fairgrounds, ran 5th in the Risen Star, and then a good second behind Catching Freedom in the Louisiana Derby. Lightly raced with only 5 career starts, but a couple of wins and a couple of seconds. I think he could be on the up and come and very interesting on Saturday. Just a Touch. I could make the same case here, but you can only use so many. As I said earlier, I think once you get past Fierceness, boy, you can point to a bunch of them, and Just a Touch would be one of those. But with only the 3 starts, a little bit lightly raced, I'm going to leave that one out, but Just a Touch does scare me. T.O. Password as the other quote-unquote Japanese horse. I'll be interested to see how the horse runs. This to me would be my toss, but it's a 2-for-2 Japanese runner. But I still have been around the game long enough that this seems like a tall ask. A couple of starts, both of them over in Japan. Come over and start number 3 and win the Kentucky Derby. I'm against that one, but we'll see how it works out. Anthony, your thoughts?
Well, working it when the first Japanese runner wins the Derby, I will lose that day. I can just tell you that right now. Anna Marie, to me, it's, boy, if you scrub out the 2 races on a sloppy racetrack, this is a major player. Now, one of my bosses here, wagering has commenced, right?
Yeah.
And he told me what I feared and I believed would happen, and that 20-1 is, we're never getting that on Anna Marie. She has been the wise guy horse for 36 to 48 hours. It's 12-1 now. That was the price. I was thinking 13-1. This was not a country house for me, who was 30-1 in the morning line, and people just got lost. This one is found. We're not getting. 13-1 is fine for me, because I was laughing at 20-1. This is the rub. If my math is right on Equibase, and I trust them about as far as I can throw a manhole cover, Ben Curtis has not won a stakes race. This is a tough spot. I will say this. I thought he moved early in the Louisiana Derby. That was his first time on him. I'm hoping the lesson was learned. I know it rarely plays out, but this is the winner of the Kentucky Jockey Club, and I thought that was a very, very good effort last autumn under the darkness. I think Super Saver is like the only one in the last 50 years that maybe did that double. But I think Anna Marie is a major player. Just Touch is one of those horses, improving Beyer speed figures, 4th career start, runner-up in the Bluegrass. I know people are saying he's the one that held around with the pace, and that's factually true. I just not that enamored. He's in the 2nd tier for me. And T.O. Password, as I said earlier, they win, I lose.
Kevin?
You stole my thunder a little bit, Paisan, and such that earlier on you mentioned that you and I think similarly about horses that have never regressed in the buyer department. And actually, although Anna Marie wouldn't have technically made your list, you thought like I do, I draw lines with the sloppy efforts. Because, so this one has, improved with each start over a fast track. So like you said, you're not going to get 20-1.
No.
So who knows where this one ceiling is? 3rd start off the layoff, and we'll obviously need, like a few others in here, a little bit of a pace.
And we're getting the distance. We're like, in this day and age, we're one of the few. We're getting the distance.
Right, absolutely.
I'm not worried.
You're just not going to get. You're not going to get 20-1.
No.
And number 8, Just a Touch, is another one, like a few others in here, that is. You could draw an upwards arrow alongside the speed figures. Being out of a Tappan mare by Justify, obviously the trip is going to be just fine. But now here's the thing: you have Sierra Leone at 5-2, and this one, who finished just a length and change behind Sierra Leone, at 4 times those odds. So is Sierra Leone going to go off a little bit higher than 5-2? Is Just a Touch going to be wise guide a little bit, maybe down to 8-1? Could set a better trip than Sierra Leone. So once again, at risk cost analysis, this one is more value than Sierra Leone on those off those morning line odds. So I can't fault those taking a
And Anna Marie is a step even better than that.
Correct, absolutely. And I've been on the Japanese horses for a few years, not just in the Derby, but in the races in Saudi Arabia, like that. I heard Seth stuttering and snaring about, like, I know you want to throw the horse out, but I think, like me, you don't want to be the first one to like completely disregard a Japanese horse and have the horse win by 2 lengths. I like to, these Japanese horses, they come over here, they're well taken care of. You like to always give them a little bit of credit in addition to throwing them out. But this is one of my horses as well.
Yeah, the Japanese runners internationally have been so good over the past year and a half or 2 years.
And they've done well in the Breeders' Cup. The filly came over at Del Mar. She was dynamic and winning, but. And one thing I will say about the Derby, and I think it's the greatest betting race in the world. That's the part that I like. But it is unique in that what it asks an athlete to do so early in their career, especially now. See, we grew up, they were so battle tested, it wasn't as big a leap. Now it's like, just a touch, 4th career start. Try and, withstand a big pace and go 10 furlongs. Knock yourselves out.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, comparing now to back then, because some of these Tomlinson figures are so grotesquely low for the distance because
stallions.
We are so many generations removed around a point when a mile and a quarter was not that big a deal for a 3-year-old.
That's one of the things about Anna Marie. Like we have one of the few that you could be confident going forward.
Absolutely.
All right, next 3. It's the other Japanese runner, Forever Young, number 11. Number 12 is Track Phantom from Steve Asmussen, and number 13 is West Saratoga. Anthony, your thoughts on the next 3?
I mean, Forever Young, I could see running well. I mean, I could, but I think you're going to get all the worst of it for the price, for all the questions. And to me, I'm a pace guy, so how the pace breaks out on the dirt, we'll see. Track Phantom is one of those ones. This is remarkable, guys. I don't know how many times I've ever seen a horse with 7 career starts never take a backward step. 3 or 4, maybe even 5, but 7. But I think Track Phantom's problem is the same problem he had in Louisiana Derby, and this one's going to be even deeper waters, and they added blinkers. It's like, do you think you're going to clear this field and pull a spend-a-buck? Because, I mean, good luck. I do not think you will be alone. And I presume the blinkers for Steve Asmussen, what's he won, 10,000 races? I've lost 10,000 races, so we got that going for us. But I suspect Track Phantom is on the engine right away. And I think Dornock, I said earlier, has to be, in my opinion. I don't think that helps Track Phantom at all, especially that last 16th of a mile. Because I will tell you, I thought he raced big in Louisiana Derby. I mean, the other 2 horses came from out of the clouds. He was still there. That was a big effort. I just don't see any chance that works out well on Saturday for him. And West Saratoga is not the 50-1 shot I want to take against Catalytic.
Kevin?
Talking about Forever Young, a lot of times public handicappers, they have loads of hubris because they always think they know everything. I know nothing about these races that this horse has run in, other than having just seen them like basically everybody at home. I mean, the horse is undefeated, hard to knock. The maternal grandsire, congrats, won his only start here. And like I said, I've been on the Japanese horses for a while. And if they beat me, it's not because I don't like the horse. It's just I don't know enough about. I could talk more about all the American horses than I can. I mean, that is not my strongest point. So I'm not going to blame anybody for including the horse. I'll have the horse tossed in my exotics underneath probably, but I just don't know enough, and I'll be the first to admit that. Track Phantom, the blinkers go on, and I've asked trainers in the past. I always think blinkers going on automatically means more speed, but some trainers say, oh, maybe it's to get the horse to settle a little bit. Do we think Asmussen's looking to raid a little bit with this horse by adding the blinkers?
That'll be disastrous. I'm not finding out. I don't mind finding out in the bluegrass, but I'm not finding out in the Derby.
But like you alluded to,
Steve putting blinkers on at 3:45 in the morning, working them out. He already knows he's not taking a risk.
One of only 3 horses outside the 8 hole that I'll be using, and like you said, has improved with every start.
Remarkable.
Rosario, congratulations, just being put in the Hall of Fame. I feel his strong point is walking the dog in a dirt route. To me, that is his strong point. So if things happen where, Fierceness,
more so than coming down the lane in turf sprints with all that strength. Oh my goodness! You think he's gonna be able to walk the dog here?
I said
there'll be an investigation.
I was getting ready to say if Fierceness, stubs his hoof, as I like to say, and if Dornock, is a little bit tardy to the party, and with any other axiom I'm going to throw at you here.
Okay.
I mean, let me tell you something. If a couple of things happen, and you see a 23-4 opening quarter, and this horse with a length and a half lead, watch out. Watch out.
Yeah, I'll be calling the jockeys in. That's what that happens.
And West Saratoga, it's a clear case of Derby fever. The horse has done okay here, but I mean, I just can't.
Forever Young, for me, is very interesting, very playable. A 5-for-5 record set a minute ago. Japanese runners internationally have really made a mark over the past couple of years. And that includes this horse, who came into the Saudi Derby with a 3-for-3 record in Japan. And that Saudi Derby, if you didn't see it, we have it here. Bookham Dano gets out there. Oh, no, we're actually watching now. This is the UAE Derby. Saudi Derby was the race right before this. Bookham Dano had gotten out to a nice lead. And at a mile trip that probably is not necessarily the strong point of Forever Young, he gets up and beats Bookham Dano in the shadow of the wire. Here he wins by a couple of lengths. Again, this is the UAE Derby, the follow-up to the Saudi Derby. And it's notable, we haven't mentioned it in regards also to the Louisiana Derby. Louisiana Derby a couple of years ago switched to the mile and 3/16. The UAE Derby also a mile and 3/16. So as we talk about these horses, will they get the mile and a quarter? These horses have all been kind of knocking on the door with these mile and 3/16 races, and that includes Forever Young. I think he's very playable. Track Phantom comes out of the fourth in the mile and 3/16 Louisiana Derby, has that early speed. And again, given that he faded a little bit last time, I couldn't quite pull the trigger there, but he's talented. He'll be a 3-year-old on the scene going forward. And Steve Asmussen sometimes picks those other Derby spots out because he usually is kind of loaded. So we'll see where Track Phantom winds up, but he'll be notable as the year goes along. And yeah, West Saratoga for me, fun story and, little known connections. I couldn't pull the trigger on this one, but comes out of the Jeff Ruby Stakes stake and a second place finish behind Endlessly. I think it's a big ask. Another one that I'm not that interested in, but as I say, on a story side of things, would be kind of fun. Be kind of fun just coming into the mix even. All right, let's take a look through the next series here. Number 14, Endlessly. Number 15, Domestic Product. And number 16, Grand Mo the First. Kevin, your thoughts?
Start me out with Endlessly, huh? Well, I have copious notes here written about the horse. The stark improvement shown this year when switching from turf to poly. And what I like about that right off the bat is in all my studies, poly leans a little more towards dirt than obviously turf would. Not a lot, but a little. So just the fact alone that he handled the surface switch nicely means that maybe dirt really isn't out of the realm of possibility. And this is his first try on the stuff, obviously. Third start off the layoff today. The workout pattern at Churchill is improving nicely over the course of the last few weeks. I think the horse draws perfectly. Now, as I was yinging and yanging on Twitter the other night about who I was leaning towards, I mentioned this horse, and a couple of followers said, McCarthy didn't really want this horse in the race. This was an owner push. I did not know that. I know trainers usually know more than the owners, but that's not going to dissuade me from liking this horse. It's a win machine. Won 5 or 6 races, and all 5 were in going away fashion, which tells you that the distance should not be an issue. Yes, dirt could be a question mark. As you see on the Tomlinson figures, there's an asterisk next to the number. Langford is the paternal dam sire. Obviously, we know here, Langford was basically a one-turn runner. But when you have Kitten's Joy on the opposite side, the horse is going to be able to get the distance, I feel. So the dirt pedigree is there. And I don't want to give up my top pick yet, but let's just say that I'm putting this horse very much in the mix, especially with Vespoli, who's one of the best finishers in the game, in my eyes. Number 15, Domestic Product. I'm not seeing it. Shad or not, IRAD or not, 30-1 or not. I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing how this horse is going to move forward. I would presume the necessary 16, 17 points today, especially in just winning by a neck in the Tampa Bay Derby and that chaotic afternoon down there. Could be kicking myself afterwards because of the connections, but I'll pass. And another pass, Ola, Grand Mo the First at 50-1. Finished behind Catalytic, who Seth mentioned earlier. But I put a lot of weight into these post positions in this race. Yes, they can have nicer trips, but the added ground does mean something. So it takes a lot for me to get to some of these animals. They have to show me something other than just a little of this or that.
For me, number 14, Endlessly. Yeah, they came out of that Jeff Ruby stake, and they came out of that, I thought, absolutely committed to the turf race this weekend.
American turf.
And it seemed like they slowly changed. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was more the owner than the trainer. But just on that, I couldn't quite pull the trigger. But this horse is very talented. Oscar Performance as a sire has just been getting a lot of buzz over the past few months as well. I'm leaving the horse out, but again, he's another one of those I wouldn't be at all shocked to see a good performance. But trying the dirt for the first time in here, I couldn't quite pull the trigger. Domestic Product, like you, out of that Tampa Bay Derby, I don't see it. But you alluded to it. And for folks who don't remember or didn't know, there was a tote system malfunctioned, so there was a delay, and the horses were already in the paddock, so they were walking around a long time. Maybe that played into it, but man, this was a quirky, 25 and change, 51, 116. And he closed into that and won, but the number went back. I didn't know what to make of that race. Before that, he finished second to Hades. I couldn't pull the trigger, but again, domestic product from these connections won't surprise me if going forward we see some nice things for this one. And Grand Mo the first in the third place, coming out of the third place finish, well beaten third in the Florida Derby. Another one I couldn't quite pull the trigger on. All right, 17, 18, 19, 17, Fierceness.
Oh, no. I forgot your buddy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This will be faster than you can think. Endlessly is a complete toss to me. I think Mike McCarthy has been politically very savvy here. He probably wishes he didn't say he didn't want to go. This is the biggest client, one of the biggest clients on earth, Amarin Racing, and it's the biggest client he's ever had. But I think he wants no part of this, but he's got to be dutiful. Domestic product, I like to see in the Jerkins this summer, and Grand Mo the first is not the 50-1 shot that I want to play head-to-head versus Catalytic.
All right, now 17, Fierceness, 18, Stronghold, and 19, Resilience. And I'll kick things off. Fierceness, I just think, I looked and I was looking for alternatives. And yes, he has the 2 losses on the resume. Around the 3 really impressive performances. I think he's the best of this group if he shows up. That's the question mark. They only, there's only 5 starts on the resume, and what we've seen is kind of a mixed bag. I'm not sure I'm totally buying he's a horse who needs things to absolutely go his own way. We're seeing the really nice win in the Florida Derby. So again, I just think he is legit, and I think if he runs his race, they're all running for second. Stronghold is interesting. I'm not going to use him in my mix, but it's another one of those. I have 2 or 3 that I'll do a little win place if the odds are right, just to kind of back myself up. He's one of those, 20-1 on the morning line, and comes in off a win in the Sunland Derby and a win in the Santa Anita Derby, and he hasn't missed an exacta finish in 6 career starts. I think the Southern California circuit got a little bit ignored this year, and I do think Stronghold, with a really nice record, is going to float under the radar. Resilience is a horse that I went back and forth, and I told people for the last month or so, here's a horse that maybe it will offer a little bit of value. And when push came to shove, I couldn't quite pull the trigger. But this one I definitely will play around with, because I do think we'll get some decent value. And off the win in the Wood, and as I said, I told people I like Resilience. What's shying me away a little bit, and we're seeing the Wood win here, what's shying me away a little bit is the post position. With a horse that probably needs to go forward a little bit, being a Bilbot, lightly raced horse, I don't think that's out of the question, but it's a big ask here with this post position in the Derby. So as I say, I'll do a little backup probably with Resilience, because I was talking about him a lot, but I just was left with some question marks that left it too much of a hill for me to climb to put him into my mix. Anthony, your thoughts?
Fierceness is a toss for me. I mean, he's the race goes through him. He's the one, but I can see more things going incorrectly than going correctly. I'm not afraid of like the 110. I don't think he's repeating that. I think he is going to come back to him. He's going to be on the outside. He's got a brilliant jockey, but I'm playing against him. Stronghold to me. I think the problem in the West set this year was that maybe the 2 best horses, aren't here, and the other ones were afterthoughts. It's one of the slowest Santa Anita Derbies. Resilience is one of those ones that's never taken a backward step with the Beyer speed figures. And I think, does Into Mischief already have 2 Kentucky Derby winners, which puts him in rarefied air. So I know one is authentic, but I think he's got a second one. So Resilience to me.
2 for 12 Into Mischief.
Yeah. I know they're kind of knocking the Wood. It wasn't that's fine. As Seth said, the problem was he was on the inside for the Wood. Now he's on the outside with early speed, but I think he's a player.
You know, if I name a horse, I'm going to name it after you. Steal my thunder, because you keep on getting the horses directly in front of me and saying the things that I want to say. And that's just me piggybacking on you. It's just, yes, I'm trying to shade Fierceness a little bit, but you have to include him. But here's the thing: he's a very slightish animal, a very small animal. Does not like to get banged around, as you saw in the Holy Bull pinball at the start. It wasn't really pinball; it was banged around, and great horses are supposed to overcome that. I don't think he's as good as the 110. I don't think he's as bad as the 84 that day. But even something smack dab in the middle, pretty much, from numerically, has the horse laying over, most of these signed on. I'm including the horse, because how do you leave the horse out off the 110? I'm glad you take a stand. God bless you. I couldn't really take a full stand against the horse here. Stronghold, once again, never missed an exacta. Improving with each passing start, although I don't think from a bias standpoint we'll be able to take that big jump forward. Like you say, going from the 3 hole to what is now considered the dreaded 17 hole. Third start off the layoff today. And Resilience, had another one who has been on the improve. Blinkers were added last time for that Wood Memorial win. Sometimes a horse can regress second time equipment or medication change if the first time resulted in a bang-up effort. If the first time resulted in a so-so effort, I like to give them a second shot. But I think this one is just a bit short here.
All right, let's take a look at the last couple. Number 20 is Society Man. And again, with the scratch of Encino, we now pull in number 21, Epic Ride. Anthony, your thoughts?
Society Man will be on my ticket. He is the 50-1 shot that I would take against Cadillac at 30-1. He was the runner-up. And I think there was a point in the race when the runner-up check looked to be pretty obvious. And I get a jockey switch, a noticeable one. I'm also not going to get 106-1. But Frankie Dettori now, this is not a big thing for me because, Frankie's on the Swan Song. He gets around the Derby. I'm out at 20, but I'm going to be running late. I just think I'm going to get a better shot with Frankie. And this is one I am going to get all of the morning line because everyone's beating up the Wood. This isn't even the winner of the Wood. Still eligible for a 1X, which isn't such a big thing anymore. It used to be. Epic Ride, I actually thought the last race, when the career is done, will be the high water mark.
Am I up?
You are.
Society Man, those that read my daily column here at Capital OTB, et al., would remember that we had Society Man on top in our column at 106-1 in the Wood Memorial. And I have written down here, top selection in Wood gave my dog a heart attack because I was kind of screaming mid-stretch. And I was, man, please just don't let anybody else, trip out here. And unfortunately, Johnny B sat the perfect trip with Resilience. And at the projected win price that day of $215.50, that would have been my second highest on top winner since I've been writing the column here. But the old expression is, miss the wedding, don't go to the funeral. I'm not going to chase my tail with the horse. The horse gave me a thrill. I cashed in a nice ticket on him that day. But I'm not going to, I'm going to leave him out here. Epic Ride, second time dirt. I expect a little bit of improvement. If you want to play that, only finish such and such behind Sierra Leone, sure. But the 20 hole loses a lot of ground there, and I'm not digging it.
Yeah, I think both of these are up against it with the outside post positions and kind of being up against it just generally, but then they'll have that other obstacle to overcome. Society Man, Maiden Breaker 2 back, and then the good second in the Wood Memorial. Going to be an interesting runner probably again going forward as a lot of these may on the 3-year-old scene this year, Danny Gargan, Dean Reeves and company, but not on Saturday for me. Same situation with Epic Ride coming out of the third in the Bluegrass, second in the Battaglia just before that. It seems like lightly raced and outside, again, just up against it, I think. So not going to have them in the mix for me.
Now, one thing I'll say about Society Man, who's going to be, I think he's a changed horse. I think I don't know if he's changed enough, but he's working out better, and he's bred also to be one of the few that wants to go 10 furlongs.
Are you okay with banging out the rider off that race?
Well, I would have done that. I mean, I don't think the rider made any mistake. I mean, the rider broke the maiden with him, but my thing with Dettori and the problem I have with Ben Curtis, my thing is Frankie Dettori is not going to panic when they're 18, 20 lengths up the backside in front of them. He's going to recognize, like, let's just settle in and we're going to make the one run and we'll see where we finish up. But also he's got Colonel John, he's got Curlin. I mean, like I said, there aren't too many stallions that you're going, 10 furlongs. Okay. I think that's kind of important.
All right, let's get our selections, give our final thoughts here on which direction we're going to go in the Kentucky Derby. Anthony, kick it off.
I wore this tie purposely. I have enough ties to make choices, and obviously it's not for Fierceness, but for the orange and blue of Honor Marie. Okay. Oh, the first one's the Oaks. Okay. Yeah, the 7. The price, I'm okay with like 13-1. If this is like Candy Boy a couple years ago and this, becomes the 7-1 shot, I'm less enamored. But I like the races on a clear, fast racetrack. I love the pedigree. I like the last race. As I said, my biggest hurdle really is the idea that Ben Curtis winning a stakes race in the Kentucky Derby. But I like my chances. I do have Society Man. I'm a trifecta super player. Society Man will be in those, folks. I mean, I think he's a player for me. I think Sierra Leone is the short price horse that I like. And, through this, the horses that are going to make up. Oh, I will say one thing about Society Man. He can only be in my 3rd and 4th place things for trifectas and supers. I will have an exacta with it because I'm sure it will be out of this world, but he is a horse that could be 75-1, and there aren't too many of them left anymore that I think can only be the second half of the super. But I will have Fierceness in that same line as him. He's not a complete toss. He's a toss out of the exacta for me. So if Fierceness runs in the exacta, I lose. But to me, the key is the 7. I'll use the 2. They're my 2 favorite horses to go forward and start putting my tickets together. That's about it. I mean, I like Honor Marie very much in this race.
Kevin?
Well, as you can see on the screen, I did go with number 14 endlessly. I would like the McCarthy hat to have. Are you grumbling next to me over my endlessly pick?
No, I like that because it's chaotic, but it's like 8 years from now, I'd like to pull him aside at Saratoga and ask him, like, how much did you not want to go? Because who the heck says that this time of year?
Here's the thing.
I don't want to go.
Here's the thing. If I don't put endlessly on top, that means I have Fierceness on top. Nobody's going to remember that I picked Fierceness to win the Kentucky Derby against the horse won. Nobody's going to give it what. All right? I'm choosing my words carefully here. As I was sitting here getting ready to juxtapose about this horse, I put a little bracket around something. Endlessly has improved from a length standpoint from the half to the top of the stretch, and from the top of the stretch, drawing out to the finish line in all 5 wins. That's something you want to see in a horse coming into the Kentucky Derby. So at 15-1, yeah, I can understand not taking a horse, but at upwards of 30-1, sure.
Absolutely.
And then I went with the sensible horses, Fierceness and Sierra Leone. Well, sensible up paper, 2nd and 3rd. And I want to reiterate to throw in the Lucas horse because you could be kicking yourself, for your superfectas. Or even for 3rd, the horse can get up for 3rd, but you need Keith at pretty decent odds. So 14, 17, 2 of my predictions. And my other prediction is that no matter how much rain it is, there's an 82% chance that it will be called fast. So make sure you trust your eyes that day. Look at the TV. Don't look at the screen where it tells you what the track is designated as. Trust yourself.
For me, 17, 11, 4, and 7. The 2, Sierra Leone, is just missing that. I mentioned before, resilience. I'm going to back up with a little play. I'll do the same with Mystic Dan. If the odds are ballooned up, just kind of back things up with those. But I just think Fierceness, again, when you look at this crop and the way the prep season has played out, they haven't been able to string them together. Now, maybe that bodes not well for Fierceness. Maybe he won't be able to string a couple together. But when he shows up and fires his effort, I think it absolutely has an edge on this bunch. In the 2nd spot, I'm going to take a look at number 11, Forever Young, who is, again, undefeated Japanese runner, impressed by both the Saudi Derby and the UAE Derby. And again, that UAE Derby at 1 3/16 puts him knocking at the door at this 1.25 mile trip. So we'll put that one in as well. Number 4, Catching Freedom, coming out of a 1.316 Louisiana Derby, should be rolling late. Sierra Leone at the bottom of my mix, similar situations with them. They're going to have to negotiate trips. And in between those two, down in the 4th spot, I had Honor Marie coming out of a 2nd place, kind of a closing finish in the Louisiana Derby. But the On the Toes workout this week attracted my attention for Honor Marie. So threw that one in as well. So 17, 11, 4, and 7 for me. Any closing thoughts? Any wagering strategies? Is how you like to play?
My part, the enthusiasm that most people haven't focused on the Derby is not shared by me, except this is the greatest betting race that's ever been. I mean, I've told there is nothing like the opportunities here today. Somebody wisely, although I wish they hadn't, put up on Twitter the function of the trifecta and superfecta prices. What they didn't add was the horses that made the superfecta being 5-to-1 shots, but it paid 8 times the price of the try. I love it in the Breeders' Cup. It's, to me, horizontal's good luck, but to me, this is the ultimate vertical race. I mean, it's all about trifectas and supers. And if you don't like horses like Fierceness, I recommend this in the Breeders' Cup because its field size is 14. It is reasonable to play 6 horse exacta boxes and finish in the black. It's about the only race this and Breeders' Cup Day that I could say that. And since I don't like one of the short price horses, that's a pool that I can dip my toes into. But it's also the only day this is the only day I'll put 2 horses in first. It's basically going to be a 2x7 by 12-ish. It's not an everyday bet for me, but that's the nature of the reward for getting it right.
Jotting down a couple of thoughts here. As we have a lot of people who really know a lot about the sport watching us, there are people that are just beginning. And what I wrote down here is days like this, if you're just starting out, show is always a nice bet. You get inflated prices in the show pool. Pick 3, as proven last year when we hit one for $9,000, is always a good bet.
Unbelievable. This day.
That was exciting stuff. Don't feel compelled to overbet the race. There's another race after, and there's more races tomorrow. People always want to have the glory of having won big money on the Derby. Don't overbet it. Just treat it as just another race from a betting standpoint in regards to your wallet. My hope, other than obviously every horse coming home safe and sound, is that there is a true speed duel. A true speed duel.
Here's hoping.
Please, God Almighty.
Here's hoping.
Can we just get?
Let's have Cooper Coy's joy on the front.
Can we just get a couple of jockeys just laying it down, or 3 of them saying, I'm not going to sit and rate a horse that doesn't want to rate? Can we just say, oh, Fierceness went out, I'm going with that horse. Please, God. Please, just something from the 80s, an old speed duel. I'm begging you, please.
You triggered when you mentioned about betting and, being a little bit conservative. Be a little conservative early if you have opinions late. It's so tempting on Derby and Oaks Day to jump in early, and then you get to those races later in the day where you really have your opinions, and now your bankroll has dwindled down. So make sure you parse it out during the day. To build up the
bankroll, people do that.
Yeah. And I'm with Anthony. I think it's a day where exactas you can go a little bit deeper. For a buck,
nothing like it.
A buck, you can do 5 horses for $20, and you get a couple of these prices in there, it's going to balloon up nicely from that $20, and you can just have a little fun that way as well. So, and you talked about structuring those trifectas at the 50-cent increment. Those can be fairly inexpensive and kind of fun ways that'll pay off very, very well also. So keep all the options in mind.
I just want to give one stat out. We talked at dinner. Forget the 17th post position thing. That's dopey. Because this stat makes sense, but when I say it, it's phenomenal. And that is, since 1970, every winner of the Kentucky Derby except Mandaloun, who was a clerical put-up, finished in the superfecta in their prep race. And that makes sense. You want an athlete going forward. But I still found that, no one could take a slight regression move, but every horse since 1970, other than Mandaloun, had finished in the superfecta in their prep race going forward. And I think most of us we touched on have done that. But I found that I'm a numbers guy. That was nobody ran 7th and then got their gear back. But so There you have it.
There's a lot of more good stats like that I mentioned. If you go to Equibase, they have a stats line, printable PDF that has all kinds of great stats. And also today, when I went to Equibase, at the bottom of the page, a little piece came up. You can get free PPs for the Derby via Equibase.
And by the way, the stat will stand up because every single horse fits that parameter. No one ran fifth or worse prepping.
And you mentioned the 17 thing. I'll just mention it quickly because it was so goofy. Because first of all, there were people on Twitter who said, "Well, how can you ignore it? They haven't done it for 149 years." Well, this is the 150th Derby, but they haven't raced out of the 17 hole.
Right.
The number I have, this is just going back to 76, but there have only been 32 out of the 17. But also, this new gate only goes back like 3 years,
Right.
which completely changes things. But I will note that now Fierceness goes to the 16, which since 1976 has won 4 times.
Just more.
It used to be the last one in the main gate.
2 final things. I utilize the DRF formulator a lot, and one excellent tool they have in that is an odds range. So whenever you're doing deep dives on horses and you're looking at their prior performances, it's important to know their odds today in conjunction with the other stats that you're looking at, like that study you just mentioned. And for those who don't know, I could be on Twitter at Brooklyn Cowboy #1, Brooklyn Cowboy 1, and good times. Right?
What I do like about the hour and a half gap in racing is you can get your exacta numbers.
Yeah.
You have plenty of time to etch out some numbers in a grid box, and that's good. Then you figure out how to write tickets. You get plenty of time. I think when I went, it was less than 40 minutes.
It's an hour and a half, man.
It's been that way for years now.
I forget.
My favorite one ever was at Belmont, where they had the gap on TV. And behind, I forget who it was, Tirico, the Manhattan was running behind them. They wouldn't show it.
Which they did for
and
about 3 or 4 years.
And they wouldn't let us show it.
mind-boggling.
I'm like, but at the Derby, they just, after the Woodford or whatever bourbon sponsored them, the Turf Classic, it's 90 minutes.
Yeah.
What do you do with the track for 90 minutes?
We've talked about this before.
Christ.
It's a 10 or 11 hour day. Right? Doesn't it? What time does it start? 10:15, 10:30?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Right? And then
The
2
only
walkout races.
I need to go to another Derby. The only one I was ever at, I was with Jack Knowlton and Tiz. There was some precarious times down there. And,
20?
And I was lucky enough to go down there and do security for the whole team and ran second that day. And, I like to
Beat
see.
by the Intermischief runner.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to see a Derby with actual people in the seats one year.
The Morminos are thinking we're going next spring. Anthony will be a senior in high school, and I think that is going to be a family thing. I don't know how I'm going to break the price point to my wife, but
Look at this guy with the pencil here. You have to love. He's hanging in there with the number 2.
I think we're going to do it next year. I mean, I will say this: I'm not spending $200 million for that paddock. But somebody posted a picture on I think it was Ed DeRosa posted a picture. I was like, I don't know that you got your money's worth for 9 figures, but it was pretty sweet looking. It was pretty sweet.
All right, that gives you some ideas for Oaks, Derby, and some of the other
Sheba.
action as well. And there'll be plenty of action both days. I wish you a lot of good luck. And again, we hope everybody winds up the weekend flush. And there will be plenty of opportunities to do that, including members of the Bankroll team.
Yes.
Again, good luck to you and everybody on the Bankroll
Pressure.
team.
And now it's pressure because how do I top last year? It's like following the Beatles. I got to follow myself.
And we're watching, baby. We're watching. So good luck. All right. And good luck to you. We appreciate your tuning in tonight. We'll see you next week after the Derby.
Watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.